knew that without more food, Outpost 11 would have been doomed. What would New London's reaction be? We didn't wait long to find out. More wood would be needed, and so a sawmill closer to the trees was made ready for construction. As for the trading between Outpost 11 and Hot Springs, that was now possible. Problem with food would soon be solved. And considering the amount of hungry and starving, that came not a moment too soon. The people of Hot Springs had a more reliable supply of food, but we would not treat them like New London treated us. We would earn their trust through action. We requested some more food be sent. We would make sure we give them something of value in return. Something that they would greatly appreciate. Coal thumper was needed for the continued survival of Outpost 11. Well, once it's a viable method of gathering coal, it wouldn't hurt to have a surplus. The observatory revealed wood, steel, and nothing else. To think it used to be a building of scientific research. There was a building in the distance that didn't look like it was in ruins. Well, not as much. That was investigated next. All those that were starving. They would eat first. it would be much like who would be treated first with medical treatment. Whoever needed it most. A matter of priority. New London was growing impatience due to the shipments not being received. Well, we had no motivation to send them anything. Because we found a better deal. One less tyrannical. As for what to research after the coal thunder, mechanical calculators sounded a good idea, considering what we would need for the foreseeable future. Two different scout groups were approaching the building that looks more intact. Nansen's Stormwatch. If there is anything else of note in the wastes, whoever would not get there first would be sent to investigate that. When the food arrived, hunger would be less of a problem, as there would be plenty for at least the next few days.
done next?
After the food arrived from Hot Springs, New London had the gall to demand that we hand it over. Outpost 11 needed it more. How badly was that city being managed in my absence? Outpost 11 had lost patience by that point. The people had had enough of New London's tyrannical rule, and I favoured sending the clerks to New London over maintaining this madness. This was not what I had worked towards. My enemies had mostly undone what I had worked since worked towards since I led those few here. Treason? Ha! New London betrayed Outpost 11, not the other way round. Did they think that we would just sit back and take this treatment? If they wanted to bring us to heel, they were welcome to try. The immediate problem was working out what to do after we practically declared independence. We would need to seek help among the settlements of Frostland. Not just with Hot Springs, but any that we had yet to locate. Hot Springs was informed of this, and they suggested some improvements that could be made to their infrastructure. there was already an improvement that could be made. Others would need steam cores. We would soon need to convince other settlements to help us over New London. So far, other improvements, it turned out, would require things like steam cores. It might also need us to send workers over to their settlements. But all would all would require wood and steel. Wood, not hugely available here, but steel, that was in abundance. The people of Outpost 11 were mostly full of hope. The scout farthest away from Manson's Stormwatch was sent to a goods station instead. As I was saying, the people were full of hope. Believing that breaking from New London was the best decision that could be made. Well, the alternative was worse. One reason why a scout was sent close to New London was to find out what happened to result in this poor treatment. Yes, they had tried to control us with food, or more specific, the control of its supply. The moment they lost control of that supply, they lost control of us. This would seem to prove that using fear to rule rarely works out long term. In fact, it usually ends in failure. Once there's nothing left to lose.
Bundle up. It's getting colder. Let's get this shipment ready.
Food was no longer an issue. The main focus, by the time day 12 had reached us, was improving hot springs to improve the relations between the two settlements. Nansen's Stormwatch had been reached. Survivors had been found. They were all escorted to Outpost 11. A name which didn't sound right. At least not to me. And it turned out that others agreed. It was then I decided that we had fully severed ties with New London, due to the new regime being completely inept and valuing us little. In a nod to my previous profession and the irony of our situation, I chose the name of our settlement. Bly's Folly. Naming it after a captain whose hard-handed disciplinarian approach, well, it was an approach which made him many enemies. Resulted in a mutiny. And since we were responsible for our own laws, child shelters were written into law. It would give the children somewhere to go. At least while the adults were working. With the coal thumper and the gathering post, slightly more was coming in than was coming out. Storage capacity had increased. And a higher tier of technology would soon be available. We would need it. More wood would be needed to provide additional improvements to hot springs. As for a supply of other things, such as well, that would depend on what the other settlements need. I had hopes that society could be rebuilt. But it seemed that blind ambition plagued some among New London. Even after survival, was still a consideration. That some would put their own ambition above the needs of others. Even if it cost everyone the very survival that they once fought for. Almost makes you ashamed to be human, doesn't it?
The workday is over. You're free to your quarters.
I could only hope that New London would come to its senses. A few around me, Gin included, believed that they would. As it didn't sound like things were going well for the one that that had replaced me. Improvements to the military warehouse were worked on, because more steel would be needed, and steam cores would need to be gathered at faster rates. Soon there would be more workers and engineers arriving. And thankfully there was more than enough beds to go around. Where to send the scouts next? Those ice caverns, I decided looked promising. So the scouts were sent there to find out what was there. Coal would no longer be a problem for us. Coal and steel would be abundance. It was food and wood. That would eventually be a problem. A cause for concern, yes. But that would be a cause for concern a few days from that point in this story. A story that was quite real, I might add. The goods station had some food supplies, both raw and prepared. An isolated camp fills me with a sense of foreboding. Because that wasn't there. The last time I was here. Or rather, the last time I was there. Why would there be a camp? Well, it would take some time to find out. Meanwhile, we would sleep. Until the next work shift. 2 medical posts were needed in the night. As for an apprenticeship, engineering was considered better. Much as before, although there were fewer to assist the engineers. It would mean slightly faster research. Besides, it would only be a matter of time before the infirmary needed to be built. As distasteful as the extended shift might be, right now it was necessary. But only every other day, leaving it on continuously. That would just be cruel. Hot Springs would be provided with some helping hands. Things looked to be improving for Bligh's Folly, as it was known by this point. But our troubles were not over. They were merely delayed. But why? Well, that camp would provide some answers.